Hey, I'm Jeff the Junk Seller, and this presentation is going to be about the flea market at Bowie, Texas. It's got a strange name. They call it Trade City Second Monday Trade Days, and there's actually two markets there. There is a city side, and then there is a side that happens on land that is privately owned. And the owner of that, I believe his name is Mark Schillenberg. I hope that's his correct name. I will put it on the video when I get a chance. I'm where I can't get a signal and I can't look it up right now. But I've been told about this the guy that owned this market for years. A friend of mine, well, actually, when I was in Oklahoma, there were some guys at Colonel Dick's flea market that used to come down for Bowie every once in a while, and there were two of them. They don't come down anymore. But then I got down to Texas, and I started selling food stuff that came from Core-Mark through a friend named Gary Anthony, and he always spoke really well of the owner of this place, and always advised me to go there. But I never followed up on that. And then I have a picker friend, a fellow picker that he speaks really highly of the guy, and I got to tell you that I got out there, and I have a tendency to agree. I really like management there. He seemed like a hell of a guy, really generous with his time and his efforts. But anyway, my fellow picker Gordon, I had always treated this, because I set up over on the city side years ago. I mean, like 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I set up over there a couple of times. And Gordon told me that because I considered this a peasant market for the longest time, because it just seemed like it was tough getting money out of them over there. And my buddy Gordon, he told me that I shouldn't underestimate the market, that I should take good stuff. I should take high quality stuff. Primitives, he said, would do well there. And he said, don't be shy about putting out some really good stuff. He said that there are some discerning buyers that come through there. And, I only made, we didn't have good weather. I only made $400 in sales. But the sales that I did make were generally pretty decent sales. And I did sell some good stuff. I sold a firkin that I'd paid $20 for at an estate sale in Fort Worth. And the lady came along and asked me what I would take for it, and I had it marked $125, and I had reduced the price down to $100. And I told her that I'd take $80 for it, and she said, well, I will buy that for $80. And then she picked a crock. And, there were just a couple of sales like that. I had a guy that came along and bought a piece of a flower frog. It was shaped like a Texas star. I think it was probably a Texas potter. I don't know. It was just a good piece of high design. Everybody liked it. It was baby blue in color. It was a good piece. But I had it marked $45. He couldn't leave it alone, and he asked me what I wanted for it, what the best I would take for it. And I told him that I'd let it go at $40. But he turned around, bought that, and then he bought a watch. A Davis, probably 1930s or 1940s men's watch, but it wasn't in running condition, and I let him have it it was gold filled. I let him have it for $35, but just instantly $75 on things that I couldn't spark any interest in a lot of sales that I've gone to. I put those watches out, nobody pays attention to it. The piece of pottery, everybody, the flower frog, everybody liked it, but nobody wanted to pay the money for it. And I wasn't going to let it go for an unreasonably low amount of money, because it was a good piece of design. But anyway, so there wasn't a whole lot of quibbling about price, and I ended up staying through. We didn't have good weather. It was misty all on Saturday, and I sold a little bit on Sunday. I sold some coins on Saturday. I sold $66 worth of silver coins which if I would have held on to them for a whole week, they would have become $82 worth of silver coins. But that's just the market is that volatile right now on silver. And but I stayed an extra day. My next door neighbor, he told me that he had 5 or 6 totes of stuff that had belonged to his stepmother, and he was going to offer them to me, see if I wanted to buy them from him. And I wound up giving him $100 for them. And there's some video of that when I set up at Stephenville. I took a video of that stuff in isolation. And as I drove away from Bowie, I was, questioning myself about why I was willing to pay $100 for it. And I thought that was probably too much money. And, there was one good piece of pottery in there that was Van Briggle. But I just, I kept telling myself, you could have bought a storage unit for that. And I really had thought that maybe I'd paid too much for it. But then I got to Stephenville, which will be the next presentation, and I got everything put out, and I decided that I actually did pretty well with that. In fact, I sold $38 in sales out of that stuff already, and $33 of it I sold at Stephenville, and then $5 of it I sold earlier today when I was in the antique mall in Abilene, and I heard the owner had bought some silver plate from somebody a walk-in just a few minutes before, and she was telling a vendor there that she needed to get a silverware box. And I just chimed in. I was going through postcards and photographs, and I told her that I had one that I'd sell her for $5 out in the van, and I brought it in for her, and she was happy. She's pleased. With it is a little rough. I was just glad to get $5 out of it. I was at Stephenville. I damn near knocked the hardware off of it and threw the wooden parts in the garbage. But that market, I think that I need to go to. I think that I can develop a following at Bowie, and they have some turnkey shops. They have some, and it's like $135 for a month for a 10 by 20, with a roll up door. And I may do that instead of getting into a storefront. There's a couple of places where I'd like to try that. One of them being at Canton at the marketplace. But I think that I think I could develop a following there. And I need to try that market a couple of more times and keep bringing the good stuff, because I think that there may be an audience for me there. But if you've enjoyed this presentation, then please give it a like. If you have enjoyed it, then please view some of my other material. And if you like that as well, then please subscribe. But thank you for following.